water will find its way. If there are no structures that are meant to do away with the flooding, it is obvious that it will go downstream and flood the property.
So tell me a bit about yourself.
I'm somebody who is quite passionate on water and environmental resources. I even did a Bachelor's of Science in Water Resources and Environmental Management because of the passion that I have on water resources. Water resources is something that has been neglected for the longest. And people just assume water is there. When you open that tap and water flows, you believe I'm quite okay. But you don't know the danger that is looming around water resources. So I wanted to have the knowledge on managing the surface water resources and groundwater resources, and also the catchments where these resources originate from. So having a blend of the three, the environment, water, both surface and groundwater, is why I venture to make sure that we are water secure.
What sparked your interest into becoming a hydrologist? What was that one moment you were like, this is what I want to do?
Looking at where I come from an arid and semi-arid land, and years back we could cycle for long to go and fetch water. And this is something that did not really sit very well with me. So I had to develop that interest of seeing how water can be accessible, whether to the urban areas and also the rural areas. So that thing really sparked my interest to go and fetch for knowledge and skills to make sure that water resources is equally accessible to everybody, whether from the rural areas, whether from the producing areas such as the mountains, and also the lowlands where we don't have access to water.
What's the simplest way to explain what you do?
The simplest way to explain whatever I do is that I deal with water, and especially water resources, both surface water and groundwater. That is doing surveys to determine volumes of water, surface water flow, and also groundwater.
What are some warning signs that a property is at risk of flooding?
Number one, I think it depends with the physicality of that property, where it is situated, either downstream of a floodplain. So that is obvious that when it rains, water will find its way. If there are no structures that are meant to do away with the flooding, it is obvious that it will go downstream and flood the property.
How can landlords and property managers protect their properties from water damage caused by heavy rains or poor drainage?
Number one, to prevent such issues, it depends with how you start your project. Proper surveys should be done to allow placing that property in a place where it is not prone to flooding. And if it's prone to flooding, then proper flood control structures are put in place to ensure that you are not at risk of losing your property through floods.
Water is life, but for the landlords and property managers, it can be their worst nightmare. What's the biggest water-related disaster you've seen happen to a property?
I've quite experienced a few. Number one, the biggest is losing a property through property being swept away by strong floods or being damaged, especially in the ground floors and the floor that is in contact with flood water, making it too expensive to maintain. Therefore, I believe those are the risks that I've seen and experienced.
Have you ever seen someone ignore a water issue for too long?
I think in our African setup,
Yeah.
we tend to act when it's too late. We don't do sustainable management. So most of the times, most of the landlords and property owners tend to act when the disaster has already happened.
Many properties experience waterlogging issues. How can hydrology help in designing better drainage solutions?
setting up a property, it's worth a big investment.
Yeah.
So neglecting some few and small issues such as critical hydrogeological surveys, geotechnical surveys to determine the type of soil and the logging properties of the soil can lead to a lot of damages. Therefore, putting into place strategies before putting up a project, it will be quite something that will help to make sure there is sustainability of investments. So hydrogeology and hydrology can really help, especially in setting up properties that are sustainable. Having in mind the hydrogeological properties of the area and also the geotechnical properties of the area will help you establish a project that will be sustainable for the longest.
Tenants always complain about water stains and leaks. But how do you know when a small problem is about to turn into a big, expensive mess?
Because we are in the era of technology, we have to put in place technologies that will alert or will be early warning systems to pending or to impending danger. And number one of the issue that I really am putting into place is smart water metering. And in this case, these smart water meters detect leakages. They reduce the non-revenue water that is quite high, especially in Kenya. Therefore, putting in place these smart devices that can relay real-time data and also can detect impending dangers such as leakages and loss of large amounts of water, I think will really help in that.
Tell us where we can get the smart water meters.
The smart water meters, you can get them from me.
Yeah.
So it will depend with the type of property, the type of water that we are metering, that is the quality of the water and also the quantity of the water. And it will also depend on the sizes of the pipes. Therefore, when we are installing this kind of meters, we have to do a pre-site visit to determine the type of pipes that are used, the sizes, the nature of the water, the quality, the quantity of the water, and also to see the type of network that is in that region, because these smart devices, they really depend on the networks to relay real-time data.
If a landlord is interested, where can they reach you?
I'm reachable through social media, but my physical office is in Nanyuki, Laikipia County, but I do anywhere in Kenya.
Water bills can feel like daylight robbery. What are some sneaky ways properties waste water without anyone realizing?
Water management, especially in property management, people have been having fishy management. Like some of the tenants, especially in the local areas and also in the urban setup, they can differ with how the normal meters work, therefore giving wrong information, wrong readings. You might find somebody is using like 10 cubics a month, but when the bill comes, he is only billed 2 cubics because maybe they have done away with the mechanical parts of the meter, or maybe something just to do away with the accuracy of the meters. The other thing is, especially which is being faced by the water service providers, is some of these meters are in areas that are not accessible. And the meter readers just give an estimate billing. They don't give the exact bill that is being displayed in the meter. Therefore, these old technologies have a lot of loopholes that are being maximized by people not to pay the exact amount of water that they have used. But now with the smart water meters, these are meters that will relay real-time data. After every 15 minutes, they send data to the system to show this is the consumption of water that has happened. Therefore, this will do away with this kind of mechanism where people just use a lot of water and pay less. And the smart water meters are of different types because number one, we have the postpaid meters and the prepaid water meters. The difference is that the prepaid meters, you have to put a token, like the Kenya Power billing system, where you have the prepaid tokens. So you prepay a token, you load to the meter, When that token is finished, it shuts itself until you reload a token. For the postpaid meters, they send real-time data to the systems. They also give SMS alerts to the tenants and also the property managers. Therefore, water management will be quite easy compared to whatever is being used currently.
Many properties depend on boreholes.
Yeah.
But is it really as simple as just drill and forget? What are the hidden dangers or surprises?
As I said, actually I'm more on groundwater than the surface water. And this is because I've seen a gap that is experienced and people are neglecting, especially on groundwater. In Kenya generally, I'm a researcher, by the way, so we don't have a lot of data in groundwater. And most of the boreholes that are being drilled, especially in Nairobi, when the hydrological survey is being done, we don't have information on how much of this water is in those aquifers. And if you look at areas like South Sea, some boreholes have started drying up. Areas like Karen, we are now drilling to almost 400 meters, which was not the case some years back. And also in Langata. Now we are drilling deeper to tap the deep aquifers. And this is just showing the looming danger that is almost to be felt, because a lot of boreholes have been drilled without the proper hydrological surveys. Therefore, a lot of abstraction is being done without knowing the amount of water that is in the aquifers. And therefore, some of the boreholes might dry up, others might reduce the amount of the quantity of water. When we put the technology of smart water metering, number one, as a property manager, you will know the consumption in a day. You will know the peak times where water is being used, especially in the mornings and evenings. You will have a rough idea on the amount of water that you use. And also, if we put these smart water meters to the tenants, we will also put a bulk meter at the borehole, at the extraction point, to compare maybe if we have losses between the borehole and also the tenants. You might find there are leakages or maybe illegal connections. Somebody tapped water and you don't know. So you can monitor through these smart technologies. You can monitor the amount of water you are drawing in the borehole and also the amount of water that is being used by the end user. And you can compare and see where you are losing water. And if that happens, you will also be able to know if this borehole is sustainable or you need an extra source of water. So this technology will help in determining these dynamics.
Do you think it will ever reach a point whereby landlords will have to literally fight for water? There'll be a water problem.
Water conflict is something that has quite been evident. A lot of conflicts are being experienced in surface water, whereby you find, this is a scenario just I'm giving to explain whatever you have asked. Yeah. In the water catchments, we have production of high volume of water. But when it trickles down to the midstream and downstream communities, you find that the water maybe does not reach the downstream communities, because the downstream communities think that people from the upstream have over-obstructed the water. So we have had cases, especially in central region of Kenya, to the northern parts of Kenya. People from downstream walk upstream through the rivers, doing away with intakes so that water can reach downstream. This is because we can see. But now in groundwater, it's something that you cannot physically see unless you feel the impacts of having less groundwater resources. So with the smart water technologies, it will be something that can be achieved to sustainably manage water resources. Because number one, you cannot increase the amount of water, but the demand will always increase. True. Because of the population changes and also the demand of water resources. Therefore, sustainably managing water will assure that with the small or with the limited water resources, we can extend the sustainability of water resources.
Have you ever had a client completely shocked by the reality of maintaining a borehole?
Severally. There was a project I was doing in Makueni, and there was a borehole that was done on a certain property, and this borehole was supplying to around 100 tenants. But the borehole was not quite sufficient because it was giving around 1 cubic of water per hour. And the property manager or the property owner had not invested in water storage, because the thinking that was there, he thought that using a 10,000 liter tank will supply to all these end users. But now you find the end users have, some of them are using just the normal water, like for cleaning purposes, cooking, just the normal usage of water in a household. But there were other tenants who were drawing this water and also selling it, because it's an area which does not have quite sufficient amount of water. So they took the advantage of filling their tanks and selling outside, and differing with the water meters that had been installed in that property. So the owner did not know whether there are fishy deals which are being done without his knowledge. So he approached us and we did a demand survey to see the amount of water that is being used. And the funny thing is that we found the water that is there is quite sufficient to the tenants. And to reassure this, we had to put smart water meters. Number one, we installed a smart water bulk meter at the borehole, and other end user meters to all the tenants. Previously, he had started doing rationing, where we are getting water like 4 days a week. But when we installed these smart water meters, because you cannot differ with how it works, if it detects some kind of malfunction, it will send a warning to the system and you will go and see what is really happening on the ground. So after installing these smart water meters, the water became sufficient. It did not increase because vandalism was not there, no illegal connections, because we will detect an illegal connection through the readings. Therefore, I think going that way of the smart water metering will really help and avoid a lot of issues between the tenants and the property owners and the property managers.
Rainwater harvesting sounds like a great idea, but does it actually work for landlords?
It can work as a secondary source of water because it's a natural source of water. If you invest in storage of rainwater, it will be a substitute to the water that you are using, whether it's a borehole or a shallow well, or maybe water from a water service provider. It is something that is quite good to invest in.
If you're asked, what's literally the biggest mistake people make when trying to collect and use rainwater?
Number one thing that people tend to neglect is the quality of rainwater, because quality of rainwater is determined by a lot of factors. Number one factor is where you are tapping this water from. It might be the iron sheets. Some can be corroded. Some could be asbestos, which are being done away with. The other thing is the storage facility. It might be a plastic tank, and that will limit you to the amount of rainwater that you will harvest. And the other thing is not knowing the demand that is there, because the demand is the one which will influence the storage that you will put. So sometimes people just put gutters, put a 10,000 liter tank, while the demand is around 50,000. Therefore, it becomes something that people need to be shed a light on.
Have you ever seen a property owner set up a water system that was so bad, you just had to shake your head. What happened?
This is something I actually see every day in my everyday life,
Yeah.
because as I have said, sometimes we do a lot of things without thinking of the future.
True.
Because when you are designing a project, you have to think of the future demand of water. Because you may find somebody has a property somewhere. This property, maybe it has 10 tenants. So when he or she was designing this project, he thought of the current population there of around 10. And when the years pass and pass, you increase the amount of properties in that area. But now you neglected the water aspect. Therefore, the demand will triple, or maybe go 5 times higher than whatever you had thought of. And maybe at this time you don't have somewhere to put an extra storage. Therefore, it becomes quite a problem when you don't do the proper surveys of demand and also looking at the sources of water that you have.
No one wants to drink water that looks like their morning tea. What are the biggest water quality issues that landlords and tenants should be worried about?
Looking at the water qualities of different places, you may find water has a lot of total dissolved solids, total suspended solids. When you look at that water, you can see this water is dirty. But sometimes you may find that maybe the water is quite clear, there is very low amounts of total dissolved solid or suspended solid, but that water is not secure to be drunk or to be taken by end users, because it might have been affected by the storage. You might find E. coli and other microbiological parameters that does not conform to the standards which have been given by Kenya Bureau of Standards. And I believe one of the things that we promote as Micheal Water is water quality, monitoring of water quality, daily water quality tests, looking at the pH of the water, looking at the different aspects such as logical parameters, looking at the physical parameters of the water. Therefore, we do regular tests to determine the quality of the water over time, because you don't know, maybe there might be a maintenance somewhere. If you are using a water service provider water, they might have done some maintenance somewhere, and the water might have been affected by maintenance activities, or maybe water not being treated well at the source. Therefore, monitoring the quality of the water will ensure the safety of the tenants.
Ever tested water and had a yikes, don't drink that moment? What's the worst case you've encountered?
Most of the water quality issues comes especially from surface water. The groundwater, it's not really affected, because provided the storage that you are using is quite clean and secure, it is very hard for groundwater to be contaminated after it has been drilled and you have determined that it is good quality water. But when you are using surface water, drawing water from the springs or rivers, sometimes when it rains upstream, water fertilizers and other chemicals might get into the streams. And consuming this water without knowing the quality of the water is quite something that is really happening. We did some tests in a river, which is in Makueni, that is my home area. And we found that phosphates in that water were quite high. And you can imagine people just drink this water because they are used to drinking anyway. But it's something that you cannot look at the water and see it's non-quality water. Therefore, I always encourage for continuous testing of water quality to determine that whatever water you are providing to the people is of quality.
What are the risks of relying on boreholes or wells for water supply, and how can landlords ensure water safety?
The risk of relying on groundwater resources is not knowing or not having the knowledge on the quantity of the quantity of water that you are drawing. As I had said, water demand versus water supply is what will ensure sustainability.
Sure.
And this can only be determined by having facts. And facts can only be determined by data. And this data can only be collected using the smart devices that we are providing. So if you establish a system that will allow you to monitor the amount of water you are drawing and the amount of water that is being used or the demand, therefore creating a balance between the supply and demand will be quite easy, therefore ensuring sustainability of the groundwater resources.
If you could give one piece of water wisdom to every landlord and property manager out there, what would it be?
Use technology to sustainably manage water. I started Micheal Musau as a business name some years back, but I turned it to a limited company for its credibility. So I mostly deal with hydrogeological surveys, groundwater borehole drilling, test pumpings, borehole installations, borehole servicing, and water supply, water quality, and wastewater treatments, and also potable water treatments. So that is basically the scope. And now the thing that we have added recently is the component of smart water metering and also water storage, doing elevated water tanks and also groundwater tanks, everything to do with water storage. On the smart water meters, they are determined by some factors, especially the physical locality of the area. If it's urban areas, we can use the 4G smart water meters or the NB-IoT smart water meters. These really operate well in the urban setups where we have good connectivity of network. And in areas where network can be a problem, where we have 3G, 2G, we use the LoRaWAN technology, where we set up gateways, and these gateways receive data from various water meters and then transmit to our systems. So the physicality of the area really determines the type of water meter to use. The other thing that we put into consideration is the type of water that we are metering. If we are metering small amounts of water, that is water being supplied in half inch, 1 inch, I always advocate for using the ultrasonic water meters because they are very precise and yeah, they are very precise compared to the other water meters. That is basically what we do.